Hello, Bruins fans. My name is Joshua Powers. I'm the Bruins beat writer for WEBN, and this is a new weekly podcast segment where we talk about the Bruins, their games, their stats, and the players. With me today, I have Austin Bumpus, who is another beat writer for WEBN, and we're going to talk about opening weekend. The rough, the ugly, and quite honestly, just the not good. The Boston Bruins opened their weekend with three very strong competitors. Winnipeg, a playoff team from last year, Montreal, who were division champions, and then Tampa Bay Lightning, who quite honestly were 2 games away from winning the whole Stanley Cup. Austin, is a very bad schedule for them to open up on, honestly, because it's a young team, a lot of young players, not a lot of experience. Do you think that this start has caused trouble for this team and will cause trouble down the road?
I think it's a tough start, starting out with such tough teams. But I think you got to realize who we've been playing with, the talent that's been injured. Overall, it's just a completely new team. The chemistry is probably not there yet, starting off with these 3 tough games. Like you said, Montreal, Tampa Bay, really good teams. It's tough to get any rhythm going when they're scoring at a high pace and you just can't get any offense going. You can't connect passes. I think the next upcoming games will definitely help out as far as building chemistry. They're not as tough as Montreal and Tampa Bay. Looking ahead, you got Arizona, you got Philly. Those are probably some games that we could at least build some confidence with, rather than facing off against tough defenses like Montreal, where nothing's going to go right for your team.
Now, the Bruins are outscored 17-6 in opening weekend. That's 6-2 against Winnipeg, 4-2 against the Canadiens, and 6-3 against Tampa Bay. Injuries have played the team at the beginning of the year. Obviously, Chara was out for the first couple games. He came back against Tampa, which they still couldn't put together a win. Although the first period did look a lot stronger against Tampa Bay with Chara on the ice. And you got to figure, even though he's getting up there in age, his veteran presence is still making an impact on this team.
The one thing about Chara for me is that he's just, not to put it bluntly, he's just too slow. He doesn't match up with our defense, I don't think. I think when you have guys like Torrey Krug, you have guys like Adam McQuaid. Adam McQuaid, yes, he's a tough player, but Chara just doesn't match up with kind of the pace of our offense, our defense, just our team in general. We're a lot smaller this year in comparison to other years, and Chara just doesn't really fit our system. Yeah, we need that tough physical presence, but just him getting up in age is actually, I think, hindering our defense. And yeah, he's a good body to have. He's obviously like a big dude, and he can help out on the defensive side of things. But I think he just doesn't match up with our style right now.
Well, in his first game back on Monday, he gave a quote to the media afterwards saying, quote, "We've just got to put together 60 minutes. You've got to be focused on what is the right play at the right time, and you have to make the right decision." The Bruins have not been making a lot of right decisions on the defense. The defensive pairs are falling apart this entire weekend, leaving Tuukka Rask out to dry. And quite honestly, some of the goals he gave up were because of that defensive pairings and what happened. And you have Matt Irwin, who is a veteran player. We get him from San Jose. You think he's going to come in and make an impact. He does okay in the preseason. I mean, he didn't shine at all, but he made an impact and he was there. But then he just comes in the first 2 games and he collapses. He absolutely collapsed.
I think it's tough, especially, like I said, it's all these new people on the Bruins that we haven't been able to connect yet. If you look at that last game against Tampa Bay, a lot of our goals were given up just because of weird turnovers that should not have been happening. And I think as the season kind of progresses, it'll be easier to get those passes, to connect, get all these players to really come together. And it'll help Tuukka out in the long run, kind of build his confidence when he's not facing all these shots per game, when he can have at least some space to kind of get a couple good saves, really save his confidence and just help him out in the long run.
Well, I think is one very good point to look into that the Bruins have actually made a big impact on, too. They were 3 for 3 on the power play against Tampa Bay. Against a championship caliber team, to go 3 for 3 on power play is unreal. I would never suspect it from this team. Louis Eriksson had 2 goals, in those situations, but you're still, when you're 5-on-4 and you're putting together those shots, you look at the Montreal game when they were 5-on-4 and they were dismal. Their power plays were dismal against Montreal, but they're putting it together against Tampa Bay, which I actually kind of surprised about.
Yeah, power play for the Bruins definitely hasn't been one of their strong suits in the past couple of years, as everyone probably knows who's been watching the Bruins. And I think it's tough against a defense like Montreal. You got Subban, you got Markov, you got all these guys that they've been there, they've done that. They're able to defend the power play really well. But the Bruins, I think this offense, like I said, it just goes back to the style of play. You got David Krejci, you got Louis Eriksson. really quick players, really good shooters that can make offensive chances. And when you have these guys, rather than the last couple of years when they've been guys like Lucic or Ginla who are just tough and they couldn't really get that quickness on the power play, I think everything coming together really helps out on offense in those chances and just creates more rebounds, creates more deflections like you've seen, just creates better scoring chances and more goals, obviously.
Well, head coach Claude Julien did put his input into the media actually after the Tampa Bay game. He says, quote, "I thought Tampa had been a tough team to penetrate, and I thought our guys did a good job of getting some speed through the neutral zone, putting pucks behind them, getting in on the forecheck," which I fully agree with. I mean, they were pressuring Tampa Bay. For the first 15 minutes of that game, they looked in it. They were ahead 2-0. They were out skating, out shooting, out hitting. They were playing the game the way the Bruins are supposed to play. And quite honestly, I thought we were going to get the win if they kept playing that way. Obviously, they didn't. They didn't keep playing that way. Also, you're missing one key guy, Brad Marchand. Took an elbow to the face. I mean, you've probably seen the replay, and I'm sure everyone else has seen the replay too. He got decked, and he did it himself. I mean, it's not like it was an illegal hit. He just skated into the guy, a small guy. He was putting his arm up, trying to get the puck, and he gets whacked, and he's out with a concussion now.
Yeah, and I think that'll definitely affect this offense. Obviously, having a guy like Brad Marchand, a good veteran that's been there on a Stanley Cup winning team, having him out is definitely going to affect everything as far as chemistry and everything like that. And I think the timing of this injury will definitely hurt the Bruins, especially this early on in the season. Like I said, when we're trying to get everything to click, it's just not going to work out long term when you're trying to get everyone on the same page. Both, I mean, you got Bergeron, he's been there a while working with Marchand, but you've got all these young guys. You got Pasternak. You got new guys like Jimmy Hayes. You got Belksley. They're all trying to, click with this offense. And when you're missing guys like Marchand or missing guys like Chara on the back end, it just hurts your team.
Well, Marchand was quoted as saying, quote, "going to be a very good team." I mean, obviously, they're not very low in morale right now, even though starting 0-3. And the last time they started 0-3 was 1999. And they went 0-5-4 in their first 9 games before getting the first win, which we really hope doesn't happen this year. But he's very optimistic, and, Marchand says there are no quick fixes for this game. After doing Tuesday's practice, he says, quote, "I think we've shown good signs in the last 2 games. Even though we haven't won yet, there's a lot of things that we can do to build off of, especially with Chara being back. Having him in the lineup, that's big. I thought the last game we came out really strong, and we showed a lot of good signs. The Lightning are an opportunistic team. They played really well, and it doesn't take a lot for them to score." So obviously, there's still optimism in the Bruins locker room. Maybe not so much in the Garden with fans, because honestly, I don't see very many Bruins fans being happy. But at the same time, the team's still optimistic.
I think that's a good thing. I think it's tough after just 3 games to completely, go down on these Bruins. Obviously, you look at some strong starts in the past. The year we won the Stanley Cup, we won, I believe it was 4 of our first 5. Fans expect that from Bruins nowadays after all these successful seasons. But it's tough. It's a long season. Just because 3 games didn't go your way doesn't mean that this season's just going to go downhill. You still have all this time that you just need a streak to really get things going. They could win their next 4 games and be all set, and momentum will be on their side. And just imagine how everything will come together when everyone's healthy, everyone's been there, and kind of been together. So I think it can only go up from here.
We're going to turn now to Bruins fans. We have Nathan on the phone from New Hampshire, and he has his thoughts on the Bruins' start of the season.
How are you doing today?
Very good, very good. What are your thoughts on the Bruins' opening weekend? Obviously, they're 0-3 to start the year. They're not looking too great defensively. What was your input after watching the Bees?
Well, after the game, Monday on Columbus Day, I realized that our main problem with the team, it's not just communication or you just can't play on two grass. I see a lot of team chemistry issues. There's a lot of missed passes. Empty net goals were missed due to poor passing, either behind or in front of the players too much. And truly, I just believe that during the offseason, there wasn't enough talent brought. I feel like the Bruins are more worried about the name coming in.
Okay, so you're looking at, the defensive pairs are obviously horrible. Irwin's being sent down to Providence. That's a veteran presence gone. Granted, he wasn't a very good veteran's presence, but he's still not there anymore. Chara's back now. Does Chara have an impact on this team coming forward?
See, that's a tough one. I still believe Chara has a good figure on the ice since he is, one of the biggest players in the NHL. But I do not see him throwing the body as much as we'd like to see, or taking the shots we'd like him to see. Because if you see him against the boards, I want him throwing the body at someone. I want him, open ice hitting, taking the slap shots from the blue line. I don't want to see him behind the net like he was Monday, dangling the puck and trying to get away from offensive players.
I mean, Marchand's out now with a concussion indefinitely, and the Bruins are now on the road and still a tough schedule in October. How many wins do they come out with, you think?
How many wins?
Yep.
I'm going to go with a 40-win season, not even. That's pushing the envelope.
Really? 40 wins? I mean, Austin, do you think that's a fair assessment?
I mean, I think it's tough to tell at this point in the season. It's a little early for these type of predictions. I mean, I'm going to hope for, I'd say 44 would be my guess if I had to do it. But like I said, it's still tough this early to really judge everyone's character.
So trade rumors are out, Nathan, and they're looking at Marchand and Chara as a 1 and 2 perspective to get traded. Either one of them will get moved, do you think?
Possibly could see Marchand going for I wouldn't say draft picks, but I'd say good level offensive player. Maybe not a first liner, but maybe a second or third line player. Chara, on the other hand, I really can't see going since he's up there in age, and a lot of teams have seen him play recently. Maybe draft pick for that one. I could see maybe 2 second-round picks, maybe a first-round pick coming our way if we trade Chara.
For almost 40-year-old defenseman?
Yeah.
That's high. I mean,
I think personally, I've been saying for the past couple of years that Chara just hasn't been able to fit in our offense, especially if you look at that Stanley Cup against Chicago. You could tell he was just tired. He was groggy. He just did not have that energy level, and that was a couple of years ago. That's not even right now. I think if we were to trade Chara, which I hope is the first move, if we trade anyone, it'll be Chara first. I don't think we'll be able to get the talent that Bruins fans think we should get for him, just because, like Josh said, he's not the same Chara that was a couple years ago. He's a lot older now. I think at this point, if we got anything from Chara, maybe second or third line defenseman and just work our way up, or just work with draft picks and do what we did with Lucic and everything like that and kind of work our way up to another first-round pick. I think that's the best-case scenario. As far as Marchand, I'm hoping that we don't trade him. I think his offensive presence is a little too much to get rid of. It's the same thing as Lucic. I originally thought Lucic was a bad move. Obviously, that's kind of worked out so far with how he's been doing in L.A. and kind of like the trouble he's gotten himself in there with that illegal hit. Other than that, I think we kind of need to keep Marchand for the toughness factor that the Bruins usually have, and he also provides that speed.
Well, here's my thing. If you look at the Bruins offseason, we were so terrible with trades. We got Matt Irwin for Martin Jones, which, by the way, Martin Jones right now has a winning record. He has not lost a single game and has, 1 or 2 shutouts already. Tuukka Rask can't even stop a puck going to the 5-hole. We should have kept Martin Jones, got rid of Gustafsson. We don't need him as a backup. Send down a Providence backup Subban or Smith, or even put Smith back in the ECHL team. Look at our 3 first-round picks. They're back in their juniors team. What's the point of having 3-round picks, first-round picks, if you're not going to put them on an active roster in your spot to even bring them up?
Well, I mean, a lot of times it does happen that you get the first-round picks. They're very young, 18 or 19. They're not ready for the NHL experience, and they do get sent back for a year. They're still contractually obligated to the Bruins. Next year, they will be back. They'll be back at the tryouts. They'll be back at, training and all that, and they're going to try and make the team again. I mean, it's just because they're young. But I look at it like...
Yeah, but Jack Eichel's young. McDavid is still young, and they're producing in their 2 teams.
I think the talent level is another thing you have to look at there, though. If you look at McDavid and Eichel, people have been talking about them for years, waiting for this draft to happen so that they could actually play on the NHL. They've been draft ready for a long time. If you look at the guys we did draft, they're not exactly NHL ready as of right now, but I think if they, as they mature and get older, I think they'll be solid talents that deserve the first round attention that they got.
It's also the difference in talent level between the first round pick and the very first pick and the 9th, 10th, and 11th pick. There's a vast talent difference. But Nathan, thank you for calling in. We much appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you guys.
And I'm looking at Claude Julien, and for Claude, does he make it past the Winter Classic?
I think that'll be a tough thing to follow, I guess, for Bruins fans. That they're easy to turn on Claude Julien. You got to realize how he's turned this team around in the past couple of years. It's been kind of back and forth between, you got a Stanley Cup run, you don't even make the playoffs, or you're losing in the first round of playoffs, and then you're back in the Stanley Cup. I think definitely this year it's a rebuilding phase. I don't think you're going to have the same talent that we usually have or the same results or anything like that. So I think I'd wait till the end of the season to see how Claude does, see everyone's records, or see all the records and everything like that. And if it's truly bad and we need to make a change, I think we will. But I think it has to be really bad to get rid of him.
So Joe Morrow gone to the IR, and Tommy Cross coming back from Providence is the very first recall of the year. We always wait for that day. Just kidding. But it's the first time that we're recalling from Providence. And I don't know, do you think it makes a difference? I
think the talent at that defensive spot just really is so interchangeable that like it's not going to matter who we have in there. I mean, it's obviously Joe Morrow isn't exactly a huge name or anything like that.
No, and I mean he was a side piece to the Louis Erickson deal. He came over to Boston from Dallas when we got Louis Erickson, and that was part of the trade.
Yeah, and it might seem for Bruins fans that we traded Sagan for Louis Erickson and Joe Morrow, who Joe Morrow obviously hasn't been producing as much as Tyler Sagan.
No, but we also got Riley Smith and Matt Frazier, which, I mean, both are decent names in the Boston market. You know, they're doing okay. They did okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that whole deal definitely didn't work out. I think we kind of focused on the wrong issue there. I think if we had gotten maybe a high-quality defenseman for Sagan, it would have worked out better long-term. I think we were so focused on replacing Sagan in the offense that didn't really work out the way we wanted it to long-term. And now you look at it, we have Chara, who's getting up there in age. You got a guy like Torrey Krug, who, granted, I mean, yes, he's a talented player, but I don't think he should be on the first line when Chara's hurt. So it definitely there's a talent level difference that I think we could have made up for. And if we're trying to replace some with people from Providence, it's just not going to matter.
So we're going to close out the show with a very fun piece. We're going to do the road ahead. We're going to look at October and discuss. Saturday night, Phoenix. We're playing in Arizona. It's a 10 p.m. game. I know we can beat Phoenix, and I know that they're a team, they're ranked one of the lowest teams in the National Hockey League, but it's still, you're in Arizona, and you got to wonder if that plays a factor into it.
I personally think, I mean, it's the Bruins, so anything can happen, but that Phoenix game should be a good confidence booster. They don't really have the offensive talent. They're a lot more defensive team, which I think we at this point are a lot more offensive, so it'll be a good test of our offense, and it'll give our defense a chance to kind of build some confidence and kind of move forward from this opening weekend.
So we get back from Phoenix, and we are going to play the Flyers, who are always a fun time. They're rivals, obviously. It's always a physical game, original six. I mean, you know, it's always one of those games that you know is going to get scruffy.
But I think that was also a problem with the Montreal game, is that people expect this really kind of like not high-flying, but just heavy-hitting game where, I mean, it's really physical. And I think we don't have that style anymore. We lost Lucic, who provided that real physical presence. Like Nathan had said, we didn't lose Chara, but Chara's losing his kind of physical presence on the ice. He's just kind of there at this point. Marchand's hurt, so we'll see where he's at in those upcoming games. So I don't know if we can match up kind of physically, but I think Philly would be another good test after the Phoenix game if we have that confidence that we need.
Yeah, but they also lost, Philadelphia, they lost 7-1 against the Florida Panthers. I know Florida's an up-and-coming team, but 7-1, I mean, that is...
But if you look at it, too, it's one of those that, I mean, any team can have a bad day. Like the Bruins, I'm sure will lose one of those horrible games, 6-1. They've had scores of, what was the last couple games? We've had like 6-2,
6-3, 4-2.
Yeah, so I think it'll be a good test against Philly as far as like building that confidence, like I said.
Okay, then we go on the road to Brooklyn, play the Islanders, 7:30 p.m. game on a Friday night. You know, Barclays Center, brand new arena. The Islanders are hyping up. You know, they're off to an okay start. It could also be another tough matchup with the Bruins. They can come out of there with a win, though. If they play strong, they play smart, they can come out with a win. It's not unfeasible.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, again, it's just going to be building up that run. That'll be a big test. If we, depending on how we perform against Phoenix and Philly, if we win those two games, that'll be a nice real test to see if we're going to go on that run that I was talking about. And if we do go on that run, I think Bruins fans will immediately stop with the whole this season's just over. It's not going to go well after this 0-3 start.
And then my favorite game of the entire month on the 27th, home against Arizona. You know, like I said, they are one of the lowest ranked teams in the National Hockey League, and playing them at home in the Garden, That's got to be a guaranteed win for the Bruins.
And I think that first game is going to determine how that all goes. If we win that first game, I think that second game's got to be a lock at home. But if we lose that first game, I think our confidence might not work out as far as, oh, we're at home. We didn't beat these guys before. We have to beat them at home. I think if we win that first game, we win that second game for sure.
Absolutely. And then, unfortunately, the 30th and 31st comes the dreaded Florida road trip, going Florida Panthers and Tampa Bay Lightning back-to-back at their respective arenas. I cannot stress enough how much I hate the Florida road trip. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. It's so bad.
I think the only part of it that really the Bruins kind of struggle with every year is that Tampa game, where they go down there. It's in Tampa Bay, which is turning into quite the hockey town for being in nice, warm Florida. But I think that might be looming on their minds in that first game against Florida, and that might kind of affect their performance in the whole road trip.
That is going to do it for us, folks. You can watch the Bruins live on NESN, except for the Philadelphia game, which will be live on NBC Sports Network. For WEBN-TV and WEBN Sports, I'm Joshua Powers.
I'm Austin Pompous.
And if you need any more news on the Bruins, the NHL, or any sports organization, you can go to WEBN.TV and find the sports section. Until next week, enjoy your hockey, Boston.